Welcome to Vigilant News Interviews, everybody. We've gotten some feedback about our next guest that I want to address. First of all, we are in an information war, as almost everybody who is aware of all the things that we talk about is aware of. And one of the things that an information war, or any war, requires us to do is learn how to work together with people we don't necessarily like. Here at Vigilant News, and especially for me personally, I think anyone who's on the side of truth that wants to help gain freedom and unite together against the globalists and the cabal and basically the dynastic enslavers that have taken over our world, we should consider working with. This is beneficial for a number of different reasons. But this is counter to what our culture tells us. Our culture tells us through movies, through all sorts of different avenues, books, that anybody who you don't like, who says something you don't like, who has an opinion you don't like, or acts in the way that you don't like, dresses in the way that you don't like, is somebody that you should be revolted by, somebody you should push out of your life. And certainly you shouldn't associate with people who associate with people you don't like. So there's times where, I'd like to interview guests that probably a lot of my audience doesn't actually like, and even people in the greater truther community might not necessarily like. But I think, as I said, if they're on the side of truth and freedom, which almost everybody is in the truth movement, so to speak, then they're worth engaging with and forming alliances with. If you look at the history of war, you have a situation where there's a lot of people who've done horrible things to each other. I mean, if we think it's bad now, it was a lot worse back in the day. I mean, you had warring tribes in the Americas, kidnapping each other, murdering each other's children, raping each other, doing brutalistic punishment, tortures, and things like this, where the most pain they could exact for the longest amount of time would be revered by the culture. So in other words, it was really brutal. Like, there's few things that I think any of those cultures endured that wouldn't invoke like incredible hatred, scorn, and revulsion of the people that did them to them. But despite all that, they still, in many cases, when there was a greater threat coming down the pike or that was already in front of them, they learned to work together with those people, despite all the horrors that they inflicted on each other. And I kind of want to invoke that mindset and speak to it. I've been in the truth community, again, for lack of a better term, for over 10 years now, and I've seen all sorts of really great potential get squandered because we tend to squabble and fight about the tiniest little issues. Moreover, when you study the way that subversive intelligence, irregular warfare, the CIA, various intelligence apparatuses and communities work, they want to sow division and discord. They want us to believe that by planting our flag of rejection in somebody that we don't like, because they made a tweet we don't like, because they dress the way we don't like, because they talk the way we don't like, then that's good enough to not work with them, to not develop an alliance with them, and ultimately to undermine them. Now, I think, from my perspective anyway, I want to put an end to this. I want to speak openly about how that is not helping us. It is a psyop. It is a lie. It's designed to take the people that we have the most potential to align with and throw them away, and worse, undermine them. So instead of that person who is our neighbor in truth becoming an ally, having our back when the bigger enemy comes into town and tries to loot our chicken coop or steal our grain or rape our wives, something awful. Instead of that, our truth neighbor being a potential ally who will have our back, there's somebody that is more likely to sell us out so that they can get ahead in the neighborhood. And I feel like this is exactly what happens in the truth movement. We've got a lot of people who, I get it. I have a lot of opinions about a lot of people, believe me. And I've been outright wronged by some people, especially recently, but I still want to be aligned with them as part of the greater truth movement. It makes sense from a material perspective. We all need material, money, and resources. We're all trying to, draw attention and energy from the same group of truther audience, the same growing truther audience, patriotic audience that we need to not only get our messages into so that we can all rally together, be a better informed digital soldier, but we also need that support from people. So there's people like me who try to have devoted my life to trying to get good quality information out there, good quality tools out there community tools, solutions, because I feel like I've discovered some things that I think are beneficial. Do I think I know it all? Of course not. But I think that part of what I can add to the battlefield is valuable. And frankly, I've heard that from many people, that they value my opinion, they value my perspectives, and they value what I bring to the digital battlefield. I think we all have a role to play in the digital battlefield. There's some people who are good at being on Twitter and sharing and finding breaking information that's very useful. There's people like Pepe Lives Matter that do a fantastic job. There's people like Absolute 1776, like John Harold, like dozens of people, George Sather, like I'm just naming some of the ones that I know of. And then there's people that are not necessarily aligned with that are still playing a valuable role. And I want to acknowledge that we have differences and certainly create a space where we can try to talk through those differences, because ultimately I think the differences are pretty shallow and we can work through them. You know, if the Indian tribes of Native America or the Indian tribes of the Indian Peninsula, who are dealing with some of the most horrific and cruel tyrannical conquest movements in history through the Indies companies, can band together despite their millennia-long battles against each other and inflicting some of the most horrific crimes of rape, pillage, these kind of things against each other to fight against the British, then I think we in the truth movement can do the same thing. Like I said, I have been openly wronged by a lot of people, you know, that some of you know who exactly I'm talking about. And as much as I would like to indulge in the desire to tear that person down so I can exact revenge and you know, take out a potential enemy in my competition to be the bigger personality in the truth movement, ultimately what's more important is that we as a united front learn how to work together and support each other economically, support each other spiritually, support each other psychologically and emotionally and socially, which is a huge one, and ultimately support each other on the tactical battlefield of the info war so that we can actually make decisive victories against the real enemy. Because ultimately, I think the real enemy here is the enemies of truth, freedom, and justice. The real enemy here are the people who sow these seeds of discourse and discontent and dissension within the people that we're talking about, within you guys as the greater audience. You know, there's people who don't have the skill set necessarily to sit here and talk in front of a camera, or don't want to do that. And what they want to do is they want to gather resources and provide those resources in the form of buying products, making donations, and otherwise supporting the truth movement. And we're like an ecosystem. We need everybody doing their part with trust, fellowship, and a greater sense of unity and devotion. Because where's the quote? As it says in Matthew 12:22, a house divided against itself cannot stand. Now, it's not exactly the quote, but that's basically what he's talking about in this section. And of course, that's been echoed through the patriots who fought the American Revolution. And it's 100% true. The enemy know, and they've been using divide and conquer tactics, as far as I could tell in my studies, for all of recorded history. The same sadistic, arguably satanic, child-abusing group of malevolent enslavers know how to weaponize a culture against itself so that the people fight amongst each other and ignore the real enemy. Or at the very least, don't really make decisive blows, because on the other side of the equation, the actual enemy, the globalists, the intelligence agencies, these dynastic enslavers, they work together in some of the most intense and powerful ways that you can possibly imagine. As a matter of fact, they use cult-like tactics to suppress any dissent. So you're either in with the cult and you work for the globalist machine, or you're going to get taken out and, you know, at the very least pushed to the side so that the people that are participating in this cult can work together, can meet in the middle of the night, can, despite their differences, unify to deal with their greater enemy, which is us, which is freedom, which is God himself. So I want to, you know, I've been thinking about this for a long time, and I know, particularly with my next guest, that sometimes, and I've seen the comments that people can be like, oh, well, you know, I didn't like when he did this. I didn't like when he did that. I don't like that he's, you know, so much of a performance personality. I don't like this. I don't like that. I get it. You know, I get it. You know, whether or not I like those things in my mind, that's for me to deal with. And I can certainly have a conversation with you guys at another point about all the little nuances about whether I like every little thing that somebody does or not. But at the greater issue here is, I think, work together so we can all have a freer world. We can stop human trafficking. We can stop the war against our children. We can stop hating each other and stop sowing discord amongst each other. And ultimately, we can get back to what the founding fathers came here to do, which is to have healthy, integrated communities that are diverse in the sense that we're all different people doing our own thing and having true freedom, while at the same time working together to protect what really matters, which is everybody's God-given rights. And I think ultimately, I think that's what God wants from us. So I say that because I want to focus more on what unites us instead of what divides us. And I hope you'll join me in this. And if you've listened to this and you've appreciated it, or if you have anything else to add, please let me know in the comments. I'd like to speak more to these issues again in the future because we've got a lot of ground to cover in this information war. We're arguably living through one of the greatest times in history where for possibly thousands of years, we've suffered under the yoke of enslavement, manipulation, divide and conquer for a very long time. But now the tide is actually starting to turn. And now more than ever, we need to unite with each other, set aside our differences, and work together in truth, freedom, and justice. So join me in that. And let's check out this interview. Welcome to Vigilant Interviews. For our guest today, we have Clay Clark. Clay is the founder and progenitor of the Reawaken America Tour events, and he's host to a bunch of the Trump patriots out there. Clay, welcome to the show.
Brother, I appreciate you carving out time for me today, and you're solo. I'm so used to you and your partner being on the show together, and I think you've changed your mustache. I think there's a lot of changes going on here.
That you are a man of good observation. Yes, I'm solo, and I'm also trimmed back the mustache, going for a sleeker, more aerodynamic look.
Wow. Do you find yourself walking from location A to B faster now, or how's this impacted your daily life, being that you're more aerodynamic now?
Oh, it's true. You all should try it. I mean, you don't happen to have an appendage, but if you ever want to slow down, I suggest growing a nice big mustache.
Okay, beautiful. Now I'm glad we've cleared that up there. I was a little bit concerned about you being able to be a little bit too fast.
Right. So what's we got going on? There's a debate to talk about. VP pick. What's on your docket today?
Well, okay. So a couple things that I wanted to make sure that I over communicated today, and I'm glad you got a big stack of stuff in front of you. One is on the VP pick. Doug Bill Gates Burgum is not a good fit for anybody who loves freedom. So Doug Bill Gates Burgum is not a good fit for anybody who loves freedom. What did I just say? I'm saying that if you're out there today and you love freedom, you do not want Doug Bill Gates Burgum to be the vice president. Doug Burgum is a man who's in North Dakota. He's a man who's heavily connected to Bill Gates. He's a man who unapologetically has tried to sell U.S. farmland to China. He's a man who indicates that he's going to do nothing to stop the transgender movement. He's a man who loves hanging out with Bill Gates consistently. So I would just say on Doug Burgum. Also, Vivek Ramaswamy. This is a guy whose college was paid for by the Soros family. What? This is a guy who wrote his college thesis advocating for the use of chimeras. This is a guy who earned his fortune by teaming up with Pfizer. This is a guy who started a company that has really never made money. If you look into the history of his company, Roivant, and then he teamed up with Pfizer and became a billionaire. This is a man who has patents connected to the mRNA modifying nanotechnology, the COVID shots. This is not a good thing. So Vivek Ramaswamy. So I of the candidates that I keep hearing their names come about, the only one that I feel good about is Ben Carson.
Mm-hmm. That's the one who seems to be at the top of the list.
You got any thoughts on that, though? Because I have big concerns with Doug Bill Gates Burgum being even connected to Trump.
Sure. Well, Vivek and these other guys, I know they have a past of working alongside globalists in some capacity. I'm not necessarily one who advances suspicions under the guise of or the pretext of guilt by association. But that being said, these are questions that need to be answered before they're put in any kind of positions of power, I think. And as far as Ben Carson, I think Ben Carson has demonstrated himself to be a patriot, to be an ally of the Trump administration for the first go around, and certainly somebody who's been supporting Trump ever since Biden's been in office. So I think he's probably a pretty good pick.
Yeah. So that would be my thoughts on the VP pick. Now, as far as this upcoming debate, I believe the President Donald J. Trump in the last debate he did with Biden, I think he came across as very measured, very accurate. Mm-hmm. You could understand the words that were coming out of his mouth. He appeared to be focused, attentive, aware of the issues. Joe Biden appeared to be confused as to what he was saying on at least 3 occasions. Joe Biden appeared to be a man who has a detachment from reality. Joe Biden did not appear to be a man who's very mentally resilient. And so I don't even know what to expect. I mean, do you think this next debate's going to happen?
Well, I'm finally glad that Joe Scarborough recognized the fact that he's not as cogent as he thinks he was. So that's a good plus. I'm not really sure. I kind of feel like there's a controlled implosion of the Biden campaign happening right now in a way that doesn't seem necessarily organic. And I think this will just have another aspect of that controlled implosion probably coming down the pike here with this next debate. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know how to react to the jackassery. It's such epic amounts of jackassery coming out of the mouth of Joe Biden. And so I would just encourage everybody out there, be praying that Joe Biden continues to be the Democrat candidate headed into the election, because to me, I think Joe Biden has what it takes to lose. I mean, I think he has what it takes. I think he has the right combination of skills needed to lose. I think he has the right combination of non-likability needed to lose. I think he has the dysfunction needed to lose. So he's the kind of guy that I want to be representing the Democrat Party headed into the election. So again, if you're out there today and you have any influence over the situation, please spread the word that Joe Biden has what it takes to lose. We want him to stay in this election. We do not want him to cave. We want him to go ahead and see it through. And that's what we want. We want Jill Biden and Hunter Biden to encourage Joe Biden to stay in the election, because Joe Biden has what it takes to lose.
That's right. I fully endorse him for a losing position.
Right. I want him to finish second. I passionately want him to finish second.
That's right. Yeah. He's going to do a great job, I think. No problem.
Right. Yeah. So now, as far as this Great Reset debacle, this Great Reset situation, this guy Yuval Noah Harari does not stop. Okay. This guy, he's nonstop, constantly talking about the Great Reset. I just want you to hear some comments that have been made over the past 2 years. This is now, if you now go to some bookstores, you walk in and it's the Yuval Noah Harari section. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Yuval Noah Harari section. I don't know if people have seen this, but you go into some major bookstores. Now, this guy sold 47 million copies of his books. He's now praised by Obama, Zuckerberg, Gates, MIT, Stanford, Harvard. For some reason, he's never discussed during debates. For some reason, he's never discussed in terms of a concerning. No one's ever concerned about what he's saying. But I'm going to play for you sort of a reverse highlight reel of all things Yuval Noah Harari, and I'll hold up his face so we get a chance to get a good look at this guy. But listen, this is Yuval Noah Harari, top advisor to the World Economic Forum, praised by Obama, Zuckerberg, Gates, MIT, Stanford, Harvard. Here we go.
The Constitution can never interpret itself. It's just a piece of paper with ink on it. So what do you make of the Second Amendment? What is the correct interpretation of the Second Amendment? You need a Supreme Court to interpret the Constitution. So a Constitution is only as effective as the Supreme Court or some other institution which interprets it, or at least this is how it was until now, when AI is the first technology in history that can not only tell stories by itself, but can also potentially interpret stories and texts by itself.
This is the end of human history. Not the end of history, the end of human-dominated history. History will continue with somebody else in control. Control, power, is shifting away from human beings to an alien intelligence, to a non-human intelligence.
Now, AI is different. It's the first technology ever that we invented that can actually make decisions by itself. And therefore, it takes power away from us.
Okay, he's saying that the Constitution must be interpreted. You and I can't possibly understand it without the Supreme Court. And he's saying that the Supreme Court is the only institution that can interpret the Constitution, right? We need we need the Supreme Court to interpret what the Constitution means. And now he's saying, however, but now with AI, we could use AI to interpret the Constitution. I mean, this guy is clearly ushering in the concept of introducing an anti-free will world where AI, where we shift our authority over to AI, and we allow AI to make our decisions. The same AI that Sam Altman is the co-founder of OpenAI. Sam Altman has said that OpenAI, the company he co-founded, he says that OpenAI will result in the need for a universal basic income and a great financial reset. Elon Musk, the co-founder of OpenAI, has said that AI will is the equivalent of summoning the demon. He was speaking to MIT students, and Elon Musk was asked, how would you describe AI? And he said it's like summoning the demon. Bill Gates is a funder of OpenAI. This is Bill Gates. He's a funder of AI. Back to that name again, Bill Gates. Bill Gates, the same Bill Gates that chose to hang out with the world's most prolific pedophile to help raise money. What? Why is one of the world's wealthiest people hanging out with the world's most prolific pedophile to help raise money? What does that even mean? Is that a good look? I mean, anybody out there, if you're a philanthropist, if you're raising money, if you're a nonprofit, would you hang out with the world's most prolific pedophile to raise money? Furthermore, if you're the world's wealthiest person or one of the wealthiest people, why do you need to team up with a pedophile or anybody to help raise money? Also, Jeffrey Epstein had a temple on his island. The temple on his island was not to pray to Jesus. It was to pray to Satan. MIT, what was funded by Bill Gates and Jeffrey Epstein. Yes, MIT, the same lab that introduced the MIT CBDCs, the CBDC technology, the central bank digital currency technology, the MIT lab that introduced that, and the MIT lab that introduced the quantum dot, which stores your medical and financial records under the skin. Those were both funded by Epstein and Gates. What? Yes, I'm just telling you, folks, this is called the Great Reset. They're trying to implement it. And I just don't think, I don't know the percentage there, Justin. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that most people have any idea that the Great Reset is even a thing.
We here at Vigilant News want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to gain freedom and deal a blow to the powers that be. One of the things that the powers that be do is they wage biological, psychological, and spiritual war on us. And there's a whole bunch of very important things that we need to do to defend ourselves from each of those types of war and build up our strength, our resources, and our unity so that we can actually make decisive blows against the enemy and not each other. One of the things that's important to do for that is health. And that's why Vigilant News partnered up with Ascent Nutrition, who's really the leading, as far as I can tell in my research, the leading nutritional company out there. There's a lot of nutritional companies out there. But Ascent Nutrition offers some of the best nutrition that you can imagine because Lance Shetler, the guy who founded Ascent Nutrition, he's like us. He wants to provide high quality nutrition, and the defense is against the ceaseless biowarfare waged against us. As everybody knows now because of COVID, we have a nonstop, highly funded, highly coordinated, health destroying machine that is pointed directly at our children, at each other, and our friends and families. And it's surprising how many of us aren't necessarily doing the best things we could. So that's why we partnered with Ascent Nutrition. I wanted to show you guys some of the really amazing products they offer. So first of all, we have pine needle extract. Pine needle extract has shikemic acid in it, and it does some really amazing things. There's spike proteins floating around everywhere because of the biowarfare of the clot shots that happened recently. Well, with pine needle extract, you can actually guard against those spike proteins. Everybody heard of pine needle tea? Well, pine needle tea can be used to literally disintegrate or break down those spike proteins and restore proper health function, which is really important because even if you didn't get the jab, all the people who did get the jab are shedding spike proteins like crazy, and it's affecting our health. My wife can testify to this. She never got the jab once, but when we go to visit our family who's been jabbed, she almost always has some kind of weird issue that happens. We also have glyphosate. Glyphosate, a Roundup, has been proven to cause cancer, a result of the Monsanto trials that happened somewhat recently, a few years ago. And we know for a fact that it erodes your gut and it causes all sorts of health problems. But with shikemic acid, you can actually help restore that because it helps break down that damaging effect. Shikemic acid also helps restore cardiovascular function. So if you've got blood clots, you need blood thinners, you're taking all sorts of stuff like that. Shikemic acid in pine needle extract can actually help with that. And it can also help restore nervous system ending, the myelin sheath. So the myelin sheath is a part of your nerve that acts as a kind of like insulator for the wire, the electrical conductor that is your nerve. And when those things break down, you get all sorts of issues that come with that: brain fog, low energy, health issues, organs not working properly, all sorts of things. But with pine needle extract, you can deal a blow to those things. You also got algae oil. Algae oil is like the building block of the cell. Every building needs bricks or steel or concrete. And our body uses omegas to build the cells that make up who we are. And unfortunately, again, because of the biowarfare waged against us, most of the fats that we eat, the seed oils, the hydrogenated oils, the butter that's pasteurized, all sorts of the oils. Unfortunately, it's like most of the oils and fats that are in our over-the-counter, commercial grade food that isn't organic and properly regulated is not healthy for us. A lot of people tend to accumulate these fats, these seed oil fats, especially the ones that are cooked for long periods of time. If anybody's even ever eaten fried food, then you've exposed yourself to this fat. There's a reason why, if somebody who's, eating a lot of fried chicken in their life gets these like ham hocks around their body, it's because literally the body stores that unprocessed, more like plastic fat in their bodies, because plastic is a hydrocarbon. Fats are hydrocarbons. So if it's not the right kind of hydrocarbon, then your body can't process it and it weighs down your body, causes tons of health issues. And then on top of it, you're not getting the actual fats you need. But with algae oil, you can have all the fats you need very easily. We do liposomal, meaning it's in a dropper, because most of the body's systems for absorbing the oil actually come from your esophagus, at least as far as my research is gained. So if you're taking fish oil is not so great for a lot of reasons. Most of the fish oil companies use hexane. Even if they're not using hexane, fish oil itself, if it's not fed properly, if it's not cultivated properly, if it's not processed properly, it can often be, at the very least, not so good or potentially even toxic. But with algae oil, we were just rated this, we have the cleanest omega product in the market. It is pure because we get it straight from the source, which is the algae itself, instead of the fish, which is what the algae eat. We also do humic and fulvic acid. Humic and fulvic acid helps absorb or chelates heavy metals. So chelation is the process where heavy metals get like magnetically sucked out of our body. And it turns out, if anybody's not aware of this, a lot of vaccines have tons of heavy metals in it. We have heavy metals like strontium and various other heavy metals being sprayed in from the atmosphere via geoengineering, which, thanks to the recent Tennessee bill that was just passed, is finally being acknowledged. So we've been, all this global warming nonsense is probably just from the geoengineering that we've been dealing with. But it's more than that. It's bioengineering. They're literally changing the face of the earth through terraforming, and part of it involves heavy metals, where you can help guard against these heavy metals with humic and fulvic acid. They'll help strip it from the body. Ours in particular is in a hyper bioavailable form. Even though we have to put an expiration date on there, it technically doesn't expire because the compound is literally millions of years old, but the FDA makes us do stupid stuff, for their own reasons, as I'm sure I don't need to tell you. The other thing about our humic and fulvic acid is it's tiny. It literally fits in a nano-sized amount or dosage, in the sense that, to use a fancy buzzword, it's tinier than most humic and fulvic, so it can get into those hard to reach places in your bodies. That also helps break down pesticides, and actually has been shown to help break down radiation. So if Fukushima is, scaring you, this is something that can help. Or the radiation from these things, portable radiation devices that we carry around with us all over the place, it can help with that. It can also help with microplastics as well. There are dozens of other amazing products here. These are just some of the ones that they have available. As all sorts of different things here. So I strongly suggest you use promo code Justin Stillness, JUSTINSTILLEN or NESS, Justin Stillness, and you can save 10% off. You can also save when you do a subscription. The subscription will not only give you points and that you can use and get free products down the line, but you can also save 10% every time that subscription goes out, and you get free shipping. So it's just like Amazon. All right, everybody, thank you so much for supporting your health, supporting your mind, and staying on the digital battlefield. Let's get back to the interview.
Well, there's a lot of people who don't know what it is, and thankfully there's people like yourself and other people who are out there telling everybody about it. And thankfully there's a book section over in Barnes & Noble with Yuval Harari's name on it that people can go and do more research with. But the good news is that these things are going to be defeated because patriots are waking up en masse, and all it takes is a little bit of thinking, a little bit of reading, and the use of something we've had from the beginning, which is free will, and we can do a lot of good things.
I agree with that. And I'll tell people this real quick here. People ask me all the time, they say, Clay, what can I do? And I think there's really three calls to action today that I believe all your listeners can do. Justin, do you have a precious metals sponsor that you team up with? Do you have somebody that's kind of in your world there?
Not presently.
Okay. Well, I'll just say this. If you're listening today, no matter who you guys decide to schedule a consultation with, I need people to understand this idea. Okay. So Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. These countries have been hoarding the Earth's gold in preparation for what? The introduction of a BRICS-controlled central bank digital currency. So for the past 17 years, who? Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. They've been doing what? Hoarding the Earth's gold in preparation for what? Introducing a central bank digital currency, a gold-backed programmable central bank digital currency. So starting January 1st, BRICS essentially doubled in size. They added Dubai, Saudi Arabia. What? Yeah. Egypt, Ethiopia. Come on. Really? Yeah. Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia, Dubai, Saudi Arabia. They all teamed up with BRICS. So now BRICS has got a bigger block. Then Russia took the leadership position in 2024. Putin takes the leadership position. He says he plans on introducing or adding an additional maybe 25 to 50 countries to BRICS, okay? BRICS, as of yesterday, just yesterday, Iran and Russia announced they're no longer going to be using the U.S. dollar at all. Then BRICS announced here a couple weeks back, they've introduced a new technology called the M-Bridge. And the M-Bridge is kind of a monetary bridge, a money bridge that allows all the countries a basket of currencies to all connect together. So somebody in India could buy something from Russia, somebody from Russia could buy something from Iran, et cetera, et cetera. And the only currency that will not be allowed to be used for the M-Bridge technology is the U.S. dollar. So these people are not obsessed with making the dollar worth less. They're focused on making the dollar worthless. Not worth less, but worthless. They want to make the dollar worthless, so where the dollar has no value. So if you took, let's pretend that this book was representative of a dollar. Or dollars. This book, if this book represented dollars, would you put it in a safety deposit box where you don't know the combination and where you can't access it when you need it? Of course you would not, because you want to have access to your cash when you need it. So why do people put money in a bank? Why does anybody put money in a bank? Why are we putting money in a bank? The theory is to keep it safe and so we can access it when we need it. So why are these countries putting their money in precious metals? Because they want to have access to the money when they need it. So right now, if for your listeners out there, and I wanted to respect any sponsors you have, but if they go to bh-pm.com, Beverly Hills Precious Metals, this is what I do since being counseled years ago by bankers that own banks. The banker I talked to in particular, he said, you need to keep 25% of your wealth in precious metals. And I asked him, well, but how do you go to Whole Foods and buy something with it? And he said, well, how do you use your equity to buy something at Whole Foods? I said, excuse me? He goes, if your house is half of the way paid for, so you have 50% of your home's value in equity, you can't go to Whole Foods and say, hey, Whole Foods, I want to buy this loaf of bread using my home equity. They won't allow you to do it. You can't do it that way. So you have to either get an equity line or you have to sell your house to gain access to the liquidity, aka the cash. He said with precious metals, though, you can gain access to the cash, to the liquidity, to the value. Typically, you can exchange your precious metals for cash within 72 hours. That's pretty typical in that space. And I never thought of it that way, you know? And when you put your money in a bank, it doesn't make copious amounts of interest that keeps up with inflation. And so I just encourage everybody out there today. Bloomberg is now saying that gold's going to get to $3,000 an ounce. Bloomberg is saying this. Bloomberg, folks, look it up. Wall Street Journal is now saying this. I mean, many of the mainstream media outlets are now saying that Gold City is now reporting that gold is going to hit $3,000 an ounce. People like Jim Rickards are saying gold is going to hit $27,000 an ounce. Yes, I did not misspeak. Jim Rickards is saying that gold is going to hit $27,000 an ounce. Many experts in the precious metal space are saying gold is going to hit $5,000 and $7,000 an ounce. Whatever price it hits, the dollar value is going to go down and the value of precious metals is going to go up. So I encourage everybody out there today, if you haven't done it today, schedule a consultation with a precious metals company that you trust. My wife and I, for years, bought precious metals from a great company called goldline.com. We never had a problem with them. Today, we buy from a company called bh-pm.com or Beverly Hills Precious Metals, bh-pm.com. But call to action number one, I would recommend you get out of fiat currency. Two, we've got our final confirmed Reawaken America tour. That's going to be October 18th and 19th in North Carolina, Selma, North Carolina. Peter Navarro, Eric Trump, and General Flynn are driving the path here. They're driving the way forward. These are General Flynn, Eric Trump, Peter Navarro. They're the driving force behind this. They wanted to host the final Reawaken America tour October 18th and 19th in Selma, North Carolina. Obviously, we need to win North Carolina to win this election. So I encourage everybody out there, get those tickets today at timetofreeamerica.com. Timetofreeamerica.com. And then my final call to action is if you are out there today and you just want to know what's going on, I stumbled across this show and I've never heard of this Great Reset thing. Go to timetofreeamerica.com and we've got endless free resources for you, endless free resources at timetofreeamerica.com where you can download, look at facts, citations, articles, videos. It's all there so you can understand Klaus Schwab, Yuval Noah Harari, and the Great Reset versus President Trump's Make America First agenda, because we've got to wake up as many people as possible.
Yep, it's very important. All those are great things. And the CBDC thing is definitely going to be coming down the pike here soon. And the more we know about our rights, the more we use our rights, the more that we can defend our rights. I just had Sheriff Mack on recently, Sheriff Richard Mack, and he reminded me of the constitutional sheriff program that he's doing, and I strongly suggest everybody look into that as well.
I agree with you. You know, Sheriff Mack is one of the original, I would say, kind of like the OG of fighting back against the Great Reset. One of those original voices, one of those original constitutional experts that questioned a lot of the issues, you know, things like eminent domain, illegal border crossing, illegal immigration. He's one of the first people to bring up these issues and focus on them. Sheriff Mack's been doing this for decades, and I encourage everybody, if you haven't listened to your interview with Sheriff Mack, it's probably a great podcast to listen to because he really knows why the Constitution guarantees certain freedoms that we, I think, take for granted.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, basically, the founding fathers gave us every tool we need to fight these globalists, because the highest authority in the land is not the president. It's not the police department. It's not the FBI. It is the sheriff when it comes to the citizenry. So if you've got a sheriff that actually knows how to wield the Constitution properly and is properly supported by the citizenry, then you can basically stop anything you can imagine when it comes to these globalist, intrusive, three-letter agencies, whatever it is that's happening, CDC, World Health Organization, stuff like that. He successfully, through this constitutional sheriff program, was able to stop the lockdowns from happening by a sheriff deputizing a bunch of pastors in a church, and as a result, the three-letter agencies just had to turn tail and run, and they never came back. So this is a really powerful tool, and the good news is if you use this method, you're not going to end up into like a Waco, Texas situation. You're going to be using the tools that the founding fathers gave you, and the globalists don't want to go against something with that much power.
Amen to that. And again, I just, the one thing I love about you, there's a lot of things I love about your program, but one in particular is that you guys on your program, you guys put in the research, you do the work needed, and you cite your sources. And I just think that there's a certain faction, I don't know what percentage of it is, but a certain faction of people that want to save this country that have a complete detachment from reality. You know, they keep thinking there's going to be this ambiguous, amorphous, opium-inspired white hat brigade that's going to show up and lead us to the promised land, and then we just need to sit back and eat popcorn. That's not going to happen. And so when you've been to the Reawaken tours, you've met these folks. Many of them have been on your show. But, you know, when you're around Eric Trump, when you're around Peter Navarro, when you're around General Flynn, you don't get the feeling that they're sitting back waiting for some amorphous third-party ambiguous, opium-inspired something to say that was easy. You know, you get the feeling that they believe that they need to get involved and they need to use their time, their treasure, and talent to save this nation. And if I could communicate one thing on today's show, that's a big thing. Because I really do believe that a lot of people sit back and they believe that there's going to be some sort of ambiguous, third-party, amorphous, hopium-inspired bleh that's going to provide freedom. And it's really bizarre, but I think it's actually lulled a lot of people that could be doing something into doing nothing.
Exactly. I mean, there's a lot of patriots actually doing a lot of amazing things. You listed a whole bunch out there, and there's a big investment. I think it's partially from the intelligence agencies and the global criminal syndicates that want to seed narratives that tell you can sit on your butt and eat popcorn and do nothing. But I think a lot of people who know about what's really going on in this country, know about the great fight ahead and, you know, the great awakening that we've been living through, is very active right now and looking for the truth, doing their research and fighting what needs to be fought. And I'm certainly looking forward to coming to the Great Awakening October for sure.
Well, again, if anybody out there hasn't come to a Reawaken America Tour event before, I mean, what you have is you have over 70 speakers over a 2-day period of time. So you have over 70 speakers over a 2-day period of time that take time out of their schedule to join us. We have baptisms during the event, so if you want to be baptized, you can. I would say 20% of our speakers, approximately maybe 25% of the speakers, are prophetic or they're pastors. They're from a ministry background. Probably a quarter are like hardcore political. That's what they do. You know, Roger Stone, Peter Navarro, General Flynn, Kash Patel, Alina Habba, that sort of group. Another quarter would be from the medical space. They're talking about what's inside the COVID shots, the World Economic Forum, the World Health Organization, the CDC, the corruption therein. And then another group really talks about the collapse of the dollar, the monetary system, and the dangers that we have facing our actual financial system, the great financial reset that is planned by Klaus Schwab and his ilk. And so I believe there's something for everybody. And then just to keep us all on a positive energy there, I bring in people like Roseanne and Jim Brewer to deliver nonstop comedy. And every speaker gets 15 minutes to deliver their message. And it really is a high energy, high octane atmosphere. And again, if you want to join us, folks, just get those tickets right now at timetofreeamerica.com.